So I started jumping out of airplanes when I was 18 years old. It's part of my kind of bolstering my resume to NASA. I wanted to be an astronaut. I wanted to walk on the moon. And I very quickly realized that for me, just jumping out of airplanes was actually more fun. I was enjoying it. But I also realized that as I got especially more involved in instruction, that the determining factor, whether someone did well, whether somebody actually brought out a worst case scenario, you know what I'm talking about? I mean, in every situation, there's a best case scenario, there's a worst case scenario, and then there's everything in between. The ones that tended to create the worst case scenario somehow, and when I say create, I think there is an effect. It seemed to be mostly because they expected it, because they went into the situation with a lot of adrenaline, with a lot of fear. I mean, certainly there is the Murphy's Law, roll of the dice part that you can't really control. But I did notice, and you guys have probably noticed this in life in a lot of ways, if you carry a lot of fear, you create situations that you don't want to be experiencing. I call it the one tree phenomenon. So when I teach skydiving students, and I've taught thousands and thousands of them, very often there's one tree in the middle of the field, in the middle of the landing area. And I say, don't hit that tree. That's the one thing that I want to make sure just please remember, the grass is fine, the tree's not okay. Please don't land in the tree. And they go up in there with this in their head, don't hit the tree. And they can't take their eye off of it. And somehow, I'll point it, because we have radios, I'll say turn left, turn right, and we'll guide them in. And somehow they manage to turn towards the tree. And very often they'll actually hit the tree, and they'll be dangling from the tree. And well, why is this happening? And I'm starting to see that the way we relate to the things that we don't want is important. If we fixate on what we don't want, the thing that's making us afraid, that we can feel it in our bodies, right? It's saying, I don't want that. I don't want to run out of money, right? I don't want terrorism to destroy everything that I love. I don't want, choices that an administration makes to impact my life on a personal level where, I can't get what I need. There's a lot of things to be afraid of. But if we fixate on them, we're not actually avoiding it in most cases. The opposite is occurring. We need to, at some point, calm ourselves down enough to consider alternate possibilities. That's why we're here. I mean, I think it's such a wonderful thing to have groups like Kiwanis where people get together and go, okay, the world is what it is. Let's stop complaining about it. Let's do something about it. Let's create answers. Let's create solutions. And that doesn't come by fixating on the problem for very long. So that's the point that I'm here to make. And I think you already knew that. So why bother bringing in a speaker? Why bother writing books about this topic? Well, it seems to me that the world needs reminding of this one on a regular basis. What is fear? Why is this such a problem? Is it evil? Is fear just a terrible emotion that we need to shove away? Not necessarily. How many people have been saved by fear? I know I've been saved by fear by making a choice towards conservatism. And it was my emotions that said, don't jump off that cliff. I'm the extreme, I mean, literally, for me, it was, I had a parachute on my back, and I looked at the conditions, and there was something in my gut that was telling me, don't do it, don't get on that airplane. I had that one. Just felt funny. We call it a gut check. You see here in scuba diving, I fly airplanes as well. I've got all kinds of strange flying contraptions that I enjoy. And the one thing that keeps me alive more than anything else, it's right here. It's my gut that says, in this sort of kind of nonverbal wisdom, something doesn't feel right. You know what I mean? So I think to cultivate that wisdom is important, to recognize that it's there, and to listen to it. That fear as wisdom. But at the same time, it's the dwelling problem, the one tree phenomenon, that we have to make sure that we say, okay, yep, thank you. If I stare at this any longer, I'm really going to get myself into the wrong state of mind, right? Can you imagine if right now, as your guest speaker, I was carrying a massive amount of fear? What would my body look like? What would my voice sound like? How interesting would I be? But the fact that I do this on a regular basis, and I love, talking, I love people, so it makes it very easy for me to do that. And what I like to do is look at people who are highly successful in public speaking, in doing dangerous things. Like I work with the EOD. You know what these guys do? The Navy group. Explosive Ordnance Disposal. They defuse bombs. As a matter of fact, in many cases, they parachute into the ocean, scuba dive down to the mine, and defuse the, I mean, really dangerous stuff. I ask these people, what do you do? And I'm asking you, yourself, right? What do you do when you start to feel the negative effects of the contraction? How do you calm yourself down when you have, for instance, performance anxiety? You're about to walk into an interview or a meeting or something that's getting you really kind of nervous, where there's a physiological change in your body, right? What happens to the body when we get excited in a negative way? Our palms get sweaty, right? What about the breathing? It changes. Right? I notice that when I'm getting ready to jump out of an airplane, especially when I've got on my back an experimental parachute, which is nowadays 99.9% of my jumps. I'm jumping an experimental parachute that I built myself in my basement. I designed it from scratch. This is what I've been doing for years and years and years. So if you can imagine, you're in the door of the airplane, and take this as a metaphor. The door comes open, the green light is on. That's what this book was about. The green light is on, right? It's showtime. What can you do to increase the chances that when you cross that threshold into that situation, where things are rolling, that you're going to be in the right state of mind to produce, to perform, to be your best? Well, we have to address our breathing. We have to address the muscle contraction that tends to happen, the hyperactivity, Can you imagine, right? You're about to jump out of an airplane with an experimental parachute. So there's a lot of physiological tension. What I'm experiencing in those moments is a heightened version of what everybody else experiences when they look at the television and they see the graph of our economy right now. So to me, there's something that pilots acquire and parachute jumpers acquire, and many other people that are in that sort of scenario, and you all have it as well, but you may not have words for it. We call it the right stuff. It's the ability to look at a graph of the current situation that is pointed downhill, right? It's bad, it's getting worse. To be able to just find something in yourself that says, I understand this is where it's going, but I'm the pilot. I'm the savior of this situation. I'm going to pull it out of the dive somehow. I don't know how yet, but I know I'm that kind of person. To recognize that we all have a pilot within us is what this is about. To take the time to calm ourselves down so we can reacquire our connection to that. So I've been studying in psychology, how do we help ourselves out of that negative state of mind, the fixation on the sort of visualization of the worst case scenario over and over and over and over. That's what our fear tells us to do, right? Picture the worst case scenario. Envision all the different versions of that. To wake up from that and then get into the alternate state of consciousness. What's the opposite of fear? That's the question I'm asking. Right? When you're making a decision about your life, when you're making a decision about your business, what's the opposite state of fear? Just, what's that going to be like? Serenity, maybe joy, anticipation in a positive way, right? Positive expectation is what I like to call it, as opposed to negative expectation, right? So often in life, people metaphorically throw a ball up in the air and go, it's not going to hit me. I don't believe that, I'm not that accurate. Positive expectations is, yes, I am that good, and they catch the ball, right? There's so many things in life where we cast off an opportunity and we don't believe it's going to happen. We have negative expectation. And the ones that succeed go, yes, it's going to work. Why? Because I'm involved. Because I'm a creator.